I've been farming 41 acres in the Willamette Valley for going on 23 years. Market vegetables, cover crops, a small grain rotation on the back parcel. And for the first 11 of those years, every single spring, I did the same thing that most farmers in this country still do. I tilled. And I want to tell you something that took me a decade and a half of mediocre harvests to understand. That machine was the most expensive mistake I made. Not because of what it costs to rent, because of what it destroys every time you run it. I've direct marketed vegetables off this land since 2002. I've failed a garlic crop in a wet March. Lost a full bed of brassicas to root fly I couldn't see coming. And watched a summer squash planting stall out mid-July despite every input I could throw at it. I've also, in the last 9 years, stopped tilling 11 of my production beds entirely and watched those beds outperform everything I was doing before. I'm not a researcher. I'm not an extension agent. I'm a working farmer with calloused hands and 11 seasons of evidence I can hold in my palm. Here's what I want you to picture. It's early April. The soil is workable. You drop the tines in, run the machine back and forth, rake it flat. The bed looks clean, looks ready. You plant into it and wait for things to accelerate. And they do for about 3 weeks. Then they stop. You add fertilizer. Things move again. Then they stop again. By July, you're fighting compaction. You created yourself by walking on the soft, tilled ground. You're watering more than you should have to because bare soil loses moisture fast on a warm afternoon. You're wondering what you're missing. I know what you're missing. I missed it for 11 years. The issue isn't your seeds, your spacing, or your fertilizer. The issue is what happened 2 inches below the surface the moment those tines spun through your bed. Let me tell you about a specific season. Up 2013. I was running about 1/3 of an acre in intensive vegetable production, mostly tomatoes, peppers, and a long run of salad mix. That spring I tilled hard, early, and I was proud of those beds. Dark, loose, ready. By August, I had compaction 6 inches down that I couldn't break without going back in with equipment. The tomatoes were producing, but they were slow, uneven fruit set, lower bricks than I'd gotten the season before. My salad mix was yellow-tinged by midsummer. I was adding amendments every 2 weeks just to keep pace. The following season, I left one bed alone, no tiller, just a broad fork for aeration and a heavy layer of straw across the surface after the last fall planting. That bed, by June of 2014, looked and smelled different from everything around it. The tomatoes I put in that spring were ahead of everything else by 2 weeks. Not because I did something more, because I stopped doing something harmful. Here's what tillage actually does to your soil, and why that difference makes sense once you understand it. Every bed that's been through a growing season has billions of organisms organized inside it, not loosely scattered, organized. Fungal threads, thinner than a strand of your hair, run horizontally through the soil, connecting plant roots to mineral deposits those roots could never reach on their own. Bacteria colonies cluster around the root zone, converting organic material into nutrition that plants can absorb. Earthworms have tunneled vertically through the profile, creating channels that move water down through the soil without you doing anything at all. That system took an entire season to build. You can destroy it in 40 minutes. One pass of a tiller running at full speed shreds every one of those fungal threads into fragments too short to function. It collapses the earthworm tunnels. It disperses the bacterial colonies. And then it settles into a dense layer at 6 to 8 inches down a compaction zone called a tillage pan that blocks drainage and stops roots cold for the rest of the season. You didn't loosen your ground. You capped it. I want to talk about the fungal network specifically, because this is where the science gets important, and where I think most farmers leave real yield on the table without knowing it. Mycorrhizal fungi grow in symbiosis with plant roots. They extend outward from the root surface in threads called hyphae, thin, dense, and capable of penetrating spaces no root can enter. A single plant connected to a functioning mycorrhizal network has access to a volume of soil hundreds of times larger than its root system covers on its own. The fungi trade minerals and water for plant sugars. The plant doesn't have to grow more roots to reach more soil. It just connects to a network that already reaches farther. That exchange is happening continuously in any bed where the soil hasn't been disturbed and the network has had multiple seasons to develop. I've had visitors walk my no-till beds and ask why the soil smells the way it does. Active. Deep. Almost like bread. That's biological activity. That's a mycorrhizal network working continuously beneath the surface, rather than getting rebuilt from scratch each spring. One tiller pass destroys it entirely, not partially. The season that built it is gone. And your crops spend the rest of the year trying to establish connections from scratch, in soil that doesn't have the structure to support fast regrowth of those networks. The second thing tillage destroys is soil structure, and this one has a specific mechanism most people don't know about. Healthy, undisturbed soil builds what researchers call crumb structure. Small clumps of mineral and organic material held together by a protein called glomalin, which is secreted by mycorrhizal fungi. You can feel it. Pick up a handful of no-till soil that's been building for 3 or 4 seasons, and it breaks apart in loose, irregular pieces. It doesn't compress back under its own weight. It holds air. It holds water between irrigation cycles without you watering more. Tilled soil doesn't do that. Tilled soil collapses. The glomalin structure that took a full season to develop gets pulverized in the same pass that cuts the fungal network. And then, because the structure is gone, the soil settles hard, right down into that compaction pan I mentioned, and you lose drainage and root penetration together. The year I first understood this, I stopped raking my beds clean between plantings. That alone changed the look of my soil within a single season. Bare soil exposed to direct sun and wind loses moisture fast and gives the biology nothing to eat. Covered soil, even a thin layer of chopped crop residue, maintains moisture and feeds the organisms that build structure below. Now here's what Japanese small farm operators have been doing for decades that most Western farmers have never adopted. No-till. Permanent beds. No machine. A broad fork for aeration, used a specific way, and a surface feeding system that replaces everything a tiller supposedly accomplishes. The broad fork is a long-handled tool with 2 handles and a row of tines. You push those tines straight down 12 to 18 inches into the bed, lean back on the handles, and lift. The tines fracture the soil vertically. They don't flip it. They don't invert the layers. The horizontal organization of your soil, the fungal threads, the bacterial colonies, the earthworm channels, stays exactly where it is. You get the aeration. You don't get the destruction. I work a broad fork through my production beds in about 10 minutes per bed. It replaced a machine that cost me hours and destroyed what I spent an entire growing season building. After harvest, instead of pulling or composting crop residue off-site, these farmers chop it and leave it on the bed surface. Straw mulch goes down 3 to 4 inches. Fermented plant material gets added as a surface application. None of it gets turned in. None of it gets buried. It sits on the surface, and the biology beneath it pulls nutrition downward continuously, not in spikes after a fertilizer application, but steadily, all season long, because the organisms doing the work have something to eat all the time. Here's what this compounding looks like over time, because this is the part that convinced me. In annually tilled beds, earthworm populations drop significantly compared to undisturbed soil. In no-till beds maintained for 3 or more seasons, earthworm counts run 4 to 6 times higher than in adjacent tilled ground. Those earthworms are doing physical work that the tiller claims to accomplish, and does worse. Their tunnels move water vertically through the soil profile, at rates that compacted or freshly tilled ground can't match. Their castings concentrate nutrients in forms that plant roots take up immediately. When they die, their bodies add nitrogen and organic matter to the bed without any input from you. In the beds I stopped tilling 9 years ago, I can reach down in early spring and count 15 to 20 worms in a single shovelful. In a fresh tilled bed, I'm finding 3 or 4 in the same volume. The tilled bed needs fertilizer because I removed the organisms that deliver nutrition naturally. The no-till bed delivers nutrition on its own because I protected the system that was already there. You don't have to overhaul everything this season. 1 bed, that's all. Pick your most productive raised bed or a single in-ground row and stop tilling it. Lay down 3 to 4 inches of straw across the surface right now. When your current crop finishes, cut the plants at the base. Leave the roots in the ground, they'll decompose in place and add organic matter without any work from you. Drop the tops on the surface, or chop them and leave them where they fell. Use a broad fork for aeration if the soil is compacted. Push the tines straight down, lean back, lift. Move 6 inches, repeat. That's the tool. That's the technique. 10 minutes, and the layers stay intact. By month 3, that bed will smell different from everything else you're growing in. By month 6, your earthworm count will have doubled if you keep the surface covered and fed. By month 12, you'll pull up a handful of soil that doesn't look like anything you've started a season with before. Darker, looser, alive in a way you can actually feel. I tilled for 11 years. Every spring I reset the biology to 0 and spent the rest of the season trying to rescue what I'd depleted. I thought I was preparing the ground. I was just destroying what the previous season had built. The beds I stopped touching are now the most productive ground I farm. No machine, no imported fertility, no spring reset, just continuous biology, protected across seasons, building on itself. That's what your soil wants to do. It's been trying to build for you every year you've been running a blade through it. Stop cutting the network. Let it work.